What does the Bible truly reveal about wealth and persistence? Have you ever realized that one of the greatest lies told to you is that the Bible condemns wealth? That is simply not true. The scriptures never condemned prosperity itself. What they warn against is laziness and idleness. Yet millions of people today remain trapped in poverty. Not because that was the divine plan for them, but because they believed this lie and buried their own talents instead of nurturing them. Does that shock you? It should. Because while you struggle just to survive, the truth is that prosperity is the natural outcome of persistent and intentional action, precisely as the Bible teaches. I remember vividly the scent of burned rubber and grease on my hands, long hours spent changing tires, scrubbing factory floors, cleaning the grime that few people wanted to face. It was cold, it was exhausting, and at the end of each shift I would sit in silence wondering, is this really my destiny? Shame weighed on me, not just from the work itself, but from the inner voice that told me that wanting more was vanity or sin. And then a single verse struck me differently. The lazy hand makes one poor, but the diligent hand brings wealth. It was not an insult to poverty. It was a call to action. The first truth I want you to grasp is this. When the Bible speaks of wealth, it is not celebrating empty luxury or fueling greed. It is calling you to responsibility and purposeful work. How many times have you thought that desiring more was arrogance? How many times did guilt sabotage your plans before they were even born? That guilt is not divine, it is cultural conditioning. I lived that trap. I grew up hearing phrases that chained my ambition. Only when I realized that prosperity can be a means of service did I let go of fear. Now the question is, how do we put this into practice? That is what Scripture teaches, practice. The first practical step is this. Identify one small skill you already have and make it useful to others. Do not wait for the perfect conditions. I had no degree when I decided to start a cleaning business. What I had was discipline and willingness. I offered a simple service, charged modestly, and delivered with excellence. Within less than 1 year, what had seemed improbable began producing results and opening unexpected doors. It was not luck. It was persistence applied to real service. What objections usually arise? I do not have time. I do not have education. What if I fail? Let me answer with other questions. Do you have 60 minutes each day to learn something new? Do you have one Saturday morning to go out and offer your service? Today, education can be self-taught. An online course, 30 minutes of daily practice, 1 book each month. And if you are afraid of failure, that is good. Failure is part of the journey. What kills dreams is not the mistake. It is quitting right after the first mistake. Let me offer a concrete roadmap that anyone can apply starting today. First, make an honest list of at least 3 things you are reasonably good at. Second, choose one and create a simple service that solves a problem for someone. Whether it is detailed cleaning, a quick repair, basic consulting, or private tutoring. Third, offer that service to at least 5 people you know. Do not fear hearing no. Fourth, record everything. Your time, your costs, their feedback. Fifth, reinvest your first profit into learning something that increases your value. These steps may sound rustic because they are. The goal is not glamour. It is tangible, scalable results. I want you to picture my routine in those early months. Waking before dawn. Hauling buckets, wearing torn gloves, returning home exhausted, yet still sitting down with a notebook to write what worked and what failed. That steady discipline was more transformative than any magical insight. And what changed even faster than income was my self-perception. Wealth, I discovered, begins when you see yourself as someone who creates value consistently, not as someone waiting for divine permission to prosper. A common fear people confess is that pursuing prosperity will corrupt their values. I ask, if you are generous today, why would wealth stop you from being generous tomorrow? In reality, greater resources amplify who you already are. The issue is not money itself. The issue is whether you are prepared to manage it with character. Preparation can be learned. Start small. Track your expenses for 30 days. Set aside a simple saving goal, even if it is just 5% of your income, and feel the peace of regaining control. Stewardship is just as spiritual as intention. And let me break another illusion. Stop romanticizing the so-called simple life as an excuse to avoid action. Contentment is beautiful, yes, but contentment is not an excuse to bury your talents. If what you truly desire is more time to serve, more opportunities to impact, more capacity to love, then prosperity is the vehicle for that. Do not confuse humility with mediocrity. Humility acknowledges the source of blessings. Mediocrity hides from using them. So here is a challenge. Over the next 14 days, choose one skill you already have and commit to offering it as a service to at least 3 people. Record every conversation, every no, every maybe, every yes. At the end of 14 days, create a simple spreadsheet with costs, gains, and lessons. This exercise is not to prove you will be rich tomorrow. It is to prove something greater. That you are capable of sowing intentionally and reaping both lessons and results. Persistence. That word once sounded like a cliché to me until I lived it. It is the dividing line between dreamers and doers. Think for a moment. How many times have you started something with excitement only to quit at the first obstacle? Perhaps it was a diet, a course, a business. You remember the energy at the start, and you remember the frustration of abandoning it halfway. Studies show that 92% of people abandon their New Year goals in less than 3 months. Not for lack of talent, not for lack of intelligence, simply because persistence hurts, and most are unwilling to pay the price. I felt that pain when I left my stable job as a Toronto firefighter. It was secure, respected, and steady. Who would walk away from that? Everyone around me said I was insane. You will regret it. You are throwing your life away. And inside me, the same question echoed, what if it does not work? The fear nearly paralyzed me. But I realized that safety had become a prison. Persistence is not just continuing. It is continuing even when everything screams for you to stop. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he succeeded in lighting a bulb. Imagine if he had quit on attempt 999. The world would have remained in darkness. The truth is that harvest never comes on the same day as planting. Persistence is watering the seed in dry soil, believing rain will come. The scriptures already said, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for in due time we shall reap if we do not faint." I lived that when I started my cleaning business. No training, no business experience, no logical reason to believe it would work. People laughed, and for months almost nothing happened. Few clients, slow returns, the perfect setup for quitting. Yet something in me whispered, keep going. And I did. Within less than 1 year, that little business produced more than 100,000 United States dollars. For someone with no formal education and only temporary jobs, that was unimaginable. Do you see the pattern? Most give up just as change begins to approach. How many businesses could have thrived if they had held on 6 more months? How many marriages could have been restored if they endured a few more conversations? How many talents could have flourished if practiced a few more years? The world is filled with brilliant people who quit too early, while ordinary people reached far simply because they refused to stop. Science confirms this with the principle of compounded effect. Small daily actions, repeated over time, create extraordinary long-term results. Persistence is like placing coins in a jar, at first insignificant, but years later heavy and abundant. So here's another challenge. Choose one simple, meaningful goal and commit to not giving up on it for 30 days, no matter what. It might be reading 10 pages daily, saving a small sum each day, walking 20 minutes, or working 1 hour on a personal project. The rule is simple: skip no day. At the end, the result will not just be the tangible progress. It will be the proof that you can sustain what you begin. That strengthens character more than anything else. Fear, that is perhaps the most silent prison of all, does not shout, it whispers. What if you fail? What if you are not capable? What if you lose everything? How many raises did you avoid asking for because you feared rejection? How many opportunities slipped away because the risk of losing scared you more than the chance of winning? That is how fear works. It paralyzes before you even try. I remember the terror of leaving the fire department. People told me I would regret it, and that same voice echoed within me. But I realized security can be a chain. Stability can be a cell. The fear of prosperity is also real. Perhaps you thought, if I get wealthy, I will be criticized. My family will judge me. My friends will abandon me. That unconscious rejection of prosperity is like driving with the handbrake on. The car moves but never reaches speed. Studies even show that people afraid of money management end up deeper in debt, not because of lack of income, but because they close their eyes to reality. Money itself is neutral. It is not holy or evil. It amplifies who you already are. If you are generous, more wealth makes you more generous. If you are disciplined, more wealth makes you more disciplined. If you are fearful, insecure, or guilty, more money magnifies those feelings. That is why preparation matters. Look at Mike Tyson. He earned hundreds of millions of dollars but ended up bankrupt. Not for lack of talent, but because he never learned discipline and persistence beyond the ring. The Bible is clear. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of sound mind. That means fear is learned, not innate. And if it is learned, it can be unlearned by persisting in action even while afraid. Every time you face fear, you prove to yourself that you are bigger than it. When you first learned to ride a bicycle, fear of falling was huge. You fell, scraped your knees, cried. Yet you kept going, and today riding feels natural. The same is true for speaking in public, for driving, for investing, for negotiating. What once seemed impossible becomes routine through persistence. So I ask, in how many areas of your life does fear still dominate? Fear of losing money? Fear of rejection? Fear of inadequacy? Fear is nothing but a siren telling you that you are leaving the comfort zone. It is not meant to stop you. It is meant to remind you that you are growing. Look fear in the face and step forward anyway. If you fear money, open your account today, track your expenses, face the numbers. If you fear losing friends for prospering, ask yourself, who are the true friends? The ones who cheer for your mediocrity or the ones who celebrate your growth? Persistence is the antidote to fear. Acting even when insecure transforms you from a slave of fear into a free person. The fear may not vanish, but it loses its grip. That is when you begin to live with purpose, without hiding, without apologizing for wanting prosperity. I learned this painfully when I stepped out of security into creation. It was terrifying yet liberating. Fear will always knock at the door. The question is, will you let it in? Wealth is not sin. It is both a right and a responsibility. To whom much is given, much will be required. The real question is, will you allow fear to define your life, or will you embrace the power already within you? Consider this. 95% of the thoughts you had today are the same as yesterday. Which means, unless you change your thinking, you will repeat the same life endlessly. I lived that cycle, waking early, laboring in mediocre jobs, going to bed drained, only to repeat again. I thought it was destiny. But one day, reading Think and Grow Rich, I realized the Bible had already said, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." The problem was never lack of opportunity outside. It was the image I carried inside. I saw myself as a failure, and so I sabotaged opportunities. You may have felt that voice. This is not for you. You do not deserve it. That is the power of self-image. Science confirms this with neuroplasticity. The brain reshapes itself across life. Every repeated thought creates a trail, like a path in a field. The more you walk it, the deeper it becomes. If you repeat, "I cannot," "I do not deserve," "I will never escape this," you deepen the path of scarcity. But if instead you affirm, "I am worthy of abundance," "I am capable," "I have discipline and persistence," you start carving new trails. At first it feels fake. With time, your mind aligns with it. That is why affirmations seemed ridiculous to me at first, but gradually changed my posture, my choices, my results. Andrew Carnegie, born poor in brutal factory work, had no apparent advantage, but he carried a vision of prosperity within him. That inner vision guided his steps until he became one of the greatest industrialists and philanthropists in history. For him, wealth was not just money, it was mindset. He encouraged Napoleon Hill to study successful men and write Think and Grow Rich, a book that transformed millions, myself included. Here is a challenge for the next 7 days. Each morning, look in the mirror and declare aloud, "I am worthy of the abundance God has prepared for me." It may feel false at first, but what you are doing is training your brain. After 7 days, you will notice alignment within yourself. Persistence in this simple practice may spark transformation. If you keep feeding the same thoughts, In 1 year, you will be in the same place. But if today you choose to cultivate a positive, persistent vision, your life will be forced to change. Because vision precedes achievement. You attract what occupies your mind. Abundance is not random. It is the result of renewing thought daily, of persisting in belief even before circumstances shift. I proved this in my life. You can too. So let me leave you with this final truth. The Bible never condemned wealth. It condemned laziness, fear, and lack of persistence. True prosperity grows from continuous action, renewed thinking, and the courage not to give up. That is the key that transforms finances, spirit, emotions, and mind. If you have grasped this message, you have already taken a step. But the journey does not end here. The next lesson waiting for you is the natural continuation. Take that step and become at least 1% better than you are today. I thank you for walking with me this far. I will see you in the next lesson as we continue this path of growth and transformation together.